Welcome to the Sydney Property Muppets podcast. My name is Kurt Lawther. I'm the real estate agent, and with me forever is
Chris Clarke, the buyer's agent.
welcome, Chris. It's lovely to see you as always every week.
Oh, geez, yeah, I do feel special.
You should feel special.
And hopefully everyone at home feels special as well. Today, get straight into it. So we're going to crack into selling, how many different ways it is that you can sell your property.
From a seller's perspective.
So, and we're going to be quite narrow to a degree. We're going to really cover off 4 major points. Maybe with a surprise later.
There might be a surprise at the end, but
mainly, so there's for sale, there's auction, which are the 2 most well known. There's pre-market, which gets bandied around, and then a little one that you love to call
pure off-market. And I say that just for all the people out there in the real estate industry, because off-market gets thrown around whether it's incorrectly or incorrectly, so I'm just labelling it as pure off-market. But we're going to start with the 2 most obvious, the 2 most common are for sale and auction. And we're just actually going to go for what I believe, and also from your perspective, the pros and cons.
Well, that's initially we'll go through. So we know what they are. I think most of them know, but let's just quickly. So auction is where your property is listed. It's available. It's in the public domain, and you have an auction. Scheduled date, more often than not planned, with an auctioneer who then, should it go that way, is going to be there with a hammer and run through terms and conditions. For sale, how would you describe for sale in comparison?
The same thing is, the property is listed, you're generally both on REA and domain, but there is no end date.
Correct.
So it could be the same with an auction campaign, but generally that's got an end date after 4 weeks.
It's definitely more of a time pressure. Okay, let's strip back. So for sale,
yeah,
as a seller, so we're talking to you this, so if you're listing, this is really a seller's version. We might do a buyer's one later on. For the seller, what's the pros of having your property listed under for sale, not an auction?
So you're technically, and I use that to say technically, you're under no time pressure.
Yeah.
So you're not forced into making a decision on a certain day. It still might come down to a crunch period, but generally there is no time pressure.
Okay.
If we're just speaking in general terms.
Okay, so no time pressure. What other pros are there of a for sale campaign?
One side of the argument for this being a pro is you can dictate when people want to see your property. So if you only wanted to open it on a Saturday,
sometimes people they might not like people tramping through their properties.
Yeah,
so they're happy every Saturday. They can cleaners come through either side, and that works with their time and schedule. Is that optimal for selling? Don't know, but it could be perceived as a pro.
Yeah.
Also, we're talking a lot about on this podcast about guide prices, but the difference with the for sale, what's the difference?
Is you do have a set price or a set range, and generally that's sort of where the property is not going to go any higher really than that.
It's expected.
Yeah. Unless it's an absolute seller's market where you're going to have multiple people somehow negotiating at the same time. But
which can happen, but more often than not, a for sale campaign that doesn't happen, because where that does happen, you then go, maybe I should have done an auction campaign.
Yeah. So if you might be asking for $1 million, or if there's a range of 1 million to 1.1, you're generally not going to get higher than
looking for numbers in that range to be accepted. What are some cons of a for sale campaign?
So a cons for that is
look at the smile on his face.
You're limited to that price.
Yep.
And as much as agents can be amazing and spot on the ball with where you think the property will sell for, it's a tax-free. If it's your principal place of residence, it's a tax-free investment. Mm-hmm. So therefore, you're limiting how much you can potentially make.
Yeah. I think you definitely potentially, if the market is moving forward and moving upwards, you may miss out on some extra cash that could be put forward otherwise.
Other things is there not being that deadline if you are looking at purchasing a property or upsizing, downsizing, and you don't have that time frame, and you actually do find something you would like to buy, it could put some pressure on you.
Yeah, it could put some perceived or some actual pressure on you to do something.
Which may then affect your sale result, that you might get an offer that you're like, oh, we actually need to take that, or you might be afraid to take out bridging finance. So
other things there. So let's get into auctions. What do you see as the opposite? I'm not saying they're the opposite because they're closely linked. quite often, we touched on this, for sale quite often can't lead to, it's unlikely for sale campaigns going to lead to an auction, but one of the pros of an auction campaign is if it doesn't work out or things need to change, you can actually just default and move, not default, but you can move down to a for sale campaign. But what else are pros and cons?
The auction campaign, you can have someone come along and crazily bid well above, and you score yourself an absolute mozza. Generally, there is that time frame of four Saturdays, 3 Wednesdays. It's quite short and condensed. You've also got the ability to redo an auction campaign. So just say it doesn't work out or something happens to go slightly wrong, you can maybe pull it off the market for a couple of weeks and redo it. And if it still doesn't work out, you can always transition it into a for sale. It's quite hard to do that with a for sale campaign.
Yes. And I think the thing is, just the word auction provides pressure to potential buyers. I know we're talking from the seller's standpoint. So auctions, more often than not, when we see them, we operate, Kurt and myself, and this podcast is for those sort of 5 to 10 kilometres in and around, or particularly within Sydney. So it's a very common mechanism to utilise.
It also allows a couple more negotiating tactics from both, maybe even from a buyer's agent or a buyer, of potentially being able to get the deal done before the auction. So using a 66W.
Can smooth off those, which obviously removes cooling off periods. But also you can list a property to auction without an auction date. More often than not, there is an auction date that's 4 or 5 weeks in the future. But you can initially launch a property, say this auction, it is to be coming, the date is to be confirmed. Even just by doing that, does mean it's auction campaign, does mean you can then move to creating a date, and that might be 3 weeks or 5 weeks, depending on the interest. But equally, it may mean you can sign, you might be able to sell it the first week with a 66W, and you haven't booked an auctioneer, and you haven't done a lot of other things.
I was just going to say, it does allow you, if you do auction, to go through all 4 stages of the ways you can sell a property.
Correct.
So from pure off-market to a pre-market to an auction campaign, and hopefully that is successful, but it does then allow you to go into a for sale. So
what are the cons? What are the cons of auction campaigns?
The cons are you as a vendor can have your heart beating so far out through your chest because you're just absolutely uncomfortable with leading up to it, nerves, what's going to happen. You could be under pressure on the day because you might not be at your number and you don't know whether, do you know what? We might as well just take it because it's actually, at the end of the day, we're moving on to the next point. Or you also could have regrets being like, we didn't quite hit the number. Or you could sell it and realise that you can't take it back. Once the hammer goes down, you have to move. Whereas in a for sale campaign, you're more likely to potentially be able to just have a 5 or 10 day cooling off period. Well,
likely, not always, but likely also a bit of time to think about, okay, I wanted 1 million, I got an offer of 970. You can probably have a day to think about. At an auction, if you wanted $1 million and you get an offer there on the day of 970, there is a perceived, and to be honest, most agents are going to put a lot of pressure on you to go, look, that's within 10% ballpark figure. Let's get the deal done, and people will feel kind of like, oh, let's just do it, and then they can have some regret.
So often some people as well, when it comes to if the number's not right at their number, sometimes the agents that know the person well might be like, okay, we recommend you taking it because you might want to move out to where your children are, your grandchildren are, and at the end of the day, a little bit of money is not worth losing over being close to your end goal. So if you've got an agent that knows you well, it's generally fine, but there are pros and cons.
We've spoken previously, good and bad agents out there, my friend. I think that last one, moving on before we move on, is also the con would be the number of times your property will probably likely be open for inspection will be, there would likely be 2 times confirmed during the week. But because it's an auction campaign, there would usually be private inspections, buyers, agent or buyers who need, they've got to provide a short window of 4 weeks. They need different timings to come through the property. So it means you need to get into, okay, we've had the property cleaned on a Wednesday afternoon, and then all of a sudden you've got people coming through on a Thursday and then a Friday morning, then everyone back on a Saturday for private inspections of these things. So just being aware that I don't see it as a con, but I think sellers should be aware the expectation's higher. For sale, typically you can go, look, it's open on these dates.
Yeah.
Make these times.
Yes. So
Okay. Other two steps. You want to touch, which one would you like to?
probably start on pre-market.
Okay, so pre-market. So step before that, what does that look like?
So
Define that for us.
a pre-market, the way
For the seller.
I would describe a pre-market, we have it as part of our campaign, our entire campaign. We usually have 3 stages in a pre-market. To our hot buyers, which is stage 1, so buyers that we've got on our books that are genuinely on our books, not just being like, oh, we've got them in our database. People that they've missed out on properties, they're keen to buy, we know what they're looking for. Our stage 2, sometimes stage 1, is also our buyers agents. Buyers agents being a real thing where they've got people paying them to find a property. And then also we've got then stage 3, which is the entire database. Generally, that just gets sent out to people that have been looking in the past 6 months that are quite keen. I think it's very important to go through all those 3 stages unless you need to sell.
Correct.
Which might be like, those 3 stages, which might be done over 2 or 3 weeks, they could also just be condensed into 1 week, depending on what the vendor wants. But for me, it goes to show the agent's actually working more than just chucking it on REA and Domain and all the other websites. It's actually them trying to work beforehand, because REA and Domain are now a monopoly, a duopoly, and they cost quite a bit of money.
What would be the pros of a pre-market campaign? What are the benefits of doing that, or perceived benefits of doing that prior to going on market?
Firstly,
as an auction or for sale later.
if you got a decent house in Roseville, you're going to be paying at least $7+ grand in marketing fees.
Yep.
So you're at least saving yourself the chance of, I know it's $7 grand it's not that big compared to the eventual sale of your house, but you are saving yourself a little bit of money. You're giving the chance for someone to speak up early about wanting the property and getting them to go above and beyond what you might receive, purely because they know that the property could go bananas at auction.
Yep. And I think if I talk from a buyer's agent, because quite often with agent presenting me properties that are pre-market, they might indicate, okay, Chris, if this was to go on the market, I'm going to provide a guide of 2.3. In the pre-market, I'm guiding 2.6, and the only way we're not going to go forward to going on the market, it needs to be an offer 2.6 or above. Now that puts a bit of pressure on
the buyers agents work a bit.
Definitely, because we don't want to overcommit, but we also then don't want it to go on the market and then we have to sell. If we want to buy, we have to buy it for an even higher price. So really making us work. But I guess my point there is, again, I know we're talking about sellers, but it allows you as a seller to, or it's almost like you can set your price for what it's going to be pre-market and then almost change the mechanics of it as you go onto an auction campaign, if that was the steps.
Even whether it's you going to go into an auction or for sale campaign, it's very important that you, before you hit the global market being REA and Domain, you know exactly the right price point to be at.
Yeah.
Because you don't want to be too high going into the campaign. You want to be at the exact right price guide. And if you've gone through your hot buyers, your VIP clients, the buyer's agents, database, you're able to get a generally good picture of where people see value and adjust accordingly. So then when you're in the auction campaign, to everyone, you're at the right price point and you can actually work out if you can sell beforehand or...
What are the cons of a pre-market?
Cons, that's a good question.
So I think the con I can see is it's another chunk of time, and if you are time sensitive, maybe better to skip that step to go straight to an auction campaign. I think the other con might be, if working with your agent, might be a bit of, I don't know who's going to be out there. There might be something bespoke about your property, so it's not vanilla. There's not 10 of them around the corner. So, geez, pre-market's not going to help us because we might only attract one buyer and we've only got one offer. There's no point doing this.
Yeah, another point I just realised, if you have an investment property and you do have a tenant that's currently still renting it and they're in a contract, you're trying not to piss them off too much. That's where you might do a condensed 1 week pre-market, maybe 2 at max, and you might only do the Saturdays because you want to try and keep them on side, so then they present the property nicely each week.
Well, and very valid for, let's say you've got a tenant and they're still got a 6 months ongoing lease. Really, the property is only really marketable to another investor. So investors who sort of know what's going on, they're probably speaking in the areas utilising buyers agents. So doing a pre-market makes a lot of sense because you're basically saying, hey, got a property, already got a person in, tenants already in there, this is the mechanics, this is the yield and so forth. Does this make sense? An investor doesn't look at are the taps shiny? Do I like the outlook or the property? It's like, well, does the finance make sense? If so, let's go ahead.
Perfect. And pure off market.
Yes.
So, just so everyone knows, a real estate agent cannot mention someone's property and bring them through, let alone mention it, without a contract of sale.
Yeah.
Which means as a homeowner, you have gone to a conveyancer, solicitor, and got a contract for sale drawn up for your property, and then the owner has handed it or emailed it to the real estate agent.
Yep.
So that is what a pure off market is, where basically it's not marketed in any way, shape or form. The real estate agent just has that contract of sale, and someone might come along to them and they might have the perfect buyer that wants that property or wants something similar like that.
Yep.
And basically a deal can get done.
Yep.
The pros of that is you may be so happy with where you're at, but generally everyone has a price point.
Yep.
And someone might be willing to pay 250, 500, 750, 1 million plus more than what would normally got, and you're just that is
too good enough to refuse. Yep. And I think there's a discrete element. You don't have to sign outside. It's not on a database been flashed around anywhere. So it really is an exclusive bunch of people who are finding out about the property or looking to buy the property, and you may be going through personal circumstances that are quite discreet, or you might have a bunch of neighbours that you just don't want them to know that you're looking to move, and then if it doesn't sell off the pure off market, you may actually not want to continue to go through. As I said, the ideal is pure off market. If we looked at all the steps, and then you did pre-market, then you did auction, that doesn't work for sale, but you may not want to do the next 3 steps.
Yeah. The other issue, the negative side of it, is that it's hard to sell a secret.
Oh yeah, that's the real estate agent coming out.
It is genuinely hard to sell a secret because sometimes there just might not be the buyers around or the market conditions, or whatever reason for you to be able to get that good price or a price you want. Whereas if it is sold to the open market, you generally actually know then where your property sits in the market. Because if it does fail for sale or auction and it hasn't quite hit the market, you might be like, our property's only worth this at this point in time. Okay, so
I think that's be all and end all pre-off market, pre-market, auction and for sale.
Yep.
So there's a bit of surprise.
Yes.
Another way of doing it is if there is a property near you that is comparable, whether it's a house, townhouse, apartment, and they're having an auction campaign, and you're looking to sell, but you're not wanting to go through all those steps. This has happened to a friend of mine. An apartment next to his identical apartment went up for auction. He went to the auction, watched it all, saw the second bidder, followed them downstairs, said, "I've got the property just next door." I'm sure he said slightly better perspective. That underbidder paid $770 bid $770 in the auction. My friend actually got them to pay $800 for his property less than a week later, and didn't have to do anything apart from providing a contract of sale.
Wow.
Yeah.
There's the surprise.
Okay, let's move on to some fun stuff though. Anything else?
No, that's it. I'm going to start with just doing a quick riddle each or a fun fact guess.
Different, yeah, go for it.
What is wider, the width of Australia or the width of the moon?
Width of Australia.
Correct.
The moon's not as big as we think.
Oh, the moon's massive, but the width of it is
it's not as big as you think, because I think most people think it's bigger than Australia.
Yeah, we're 4,000 kilometres wide.
The
moon...
Less than that.
Yeah.
Just less than that.
Just less.
Okay. A red brick house is made out of what?
Red brick.
Yeah. A blue brick house is made out of what?
Blue brick.
Okay. A yellow house is made out of what?
Yellow brick.
A green house is made out of what?
A greenhouse.
Made out of what?
Green bricks.
Glass. Greenhouses are made out of glass. For your plants and...
I was seriously trying... I was like, where is this going?
At least a bit of a riddle that's a bit property-centric.
No, I like that.
All right.
thank you guys for watching. I know it was a little bit of a longer one, but I think we really tried to focus on the selling side and the actual different ways that you can sell a property, the pros and cons, without actually saying what we believe is best or not, because every situation is unique and different. And
you're unique and special too.
If you have someone in mind that is selling and you sort of no idea about selling or what to do, or they just need a bit of a head start,
Great one to get into.
Fantastic.
Share this episode of the podcast. Thank you for dropping by.